Ruh-roh. What is up, guys? I am Howie. This is the Go Ride channel. Coming at you today with Break from the CRF project. I'm going to look at the Ducati. The Ducati is running very poorly. In the intro clip, I kind of showed you a little bit of what was going on. I don't know that the poor running condition and the comatose ECU or comatose dash are related. What's going on is it did it yesterday as well, is when the bike gets hot, it starts misfiring and, and running generally very poorly. One of the other things that I noticed that it was doing is that it would go, it's been hot here in California. Let me preface it that way. 80, 90, 100 degrees. And the bike would jump in temperature from about 199 or 200 on up to 230. Fans would kick on and then the bike would start running poorly. So given that the temperature was jumping like that, I think it may be something in the coolant system or the coolant temperature sensor that is perhaps giving a bad signal to the ECU. It's adjusting the mixture incorrectly and causing it to misfire. One of the other things I noticed too is it smells very rich when this is going on, which is kind of counterintuitive, but I think that may be the result of the misfire itself and just fuel not burning in the cylinder and passing through. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of things to troubleshoot this. First thing I'm going to do is probably pull the front spark plug out to see if I can read it and see if perhaps the bike is running rich or lean based on the color of it. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the coolant temperature sensor out. I'm going to measure it, measure resistance through it in cold water and then in boiling water and see if perhaps there's no difference or it's not responding correctly. I haven't looked at the manual yet to see exactly what ranges are going to be specified, but I'm hoping that there's something in there in the factory service manual. So let's get started. Removal of the front spark plug is not particularly difficult. The vertical cylinder is a lot more difficult because you have to pull the seat, the fairings, and the fuel tank. So I'm going to start with this one and see if I can see anything. I just remove the coil pack right there with the 10 mil wrench. There's going to be some fishing to get it out between the front tire, and then I'll have to funnel an extension down there. With Ducatis, there is a special toolkit that comes with the bike, which I don't have because I bought this bike from Head. So it may be necessary to grind down or file down the edges of your spark plug socket in order to fit it down into the cylinder head. So let's get started. When removing the coil, it may be helpful to gently pry against it in order to help kind of break the seal. This bike has a lot of aluminum parts in the motor. It's always good practice to remove and reinstall spark plugs when the bike is cold, but it's exceptionally important if your bike has aluminum heads. All right, and looking at the plug, it's not terrible. It smells a little bit rich like gasoline, but looking at the tip and everything, it looks about average. So with having done that, it appears that the bike is just misfiring. It doesn't look like it's running particularly rich, at least for a long period of time, but it does smell like there's some unburnt fuel, which doesn't really lend a lot of credibility to my thought that it might be running off the wrong map, but I still want to take a look at the coolant temperature sensor because I think something is going on there. I don't even know where it is on this bike, so I'm going to go ahead and locate it, remove it, and then start troubleshooting. So the coolant temperature sensor is in the manifold that's like way back here. So I think the easiest way to get it is going to be to remove the battery tray and all this stuff. One of the other things too, as I go and do that, I'm going to go ahead and look to make sure none of the wires are kind of out of sorts. This bike is exceptionally sensitive electrically, and if something is maybe pushed in or out too far, then it could be getting too warm, changing the resistance in a wire or something to that effect. So that's something else I'm going to bear in mind, make sure all the heat shielding is in the right spot. I'm going to go ahead and remove this and try to get to the temp sensor. So at this point I can finally see the temperature sensor, which is this unit right here. So this electrical connection has to come off, and then I'll unthread it through here. I have a feeling it may spray coolant everywhere, so I'm going to go ahead and just put I'm going to see what I can do about draining some of the coolant. So I need to get that out anyway because I need to replace it with some water wetter and just water. Out of frame right now, I'm removing the radiator cap to allow this to drain a little faster. Ta-da. So even though I told him not to, it looks like the dealer did do a coolant flush when I had it in for the annual. I had just flushed it right before I gave it to him, but it looks like they pulled that out and put AGIP in it. Now that I've succeeded in getting coolant all over the place, I'm going to go ahead and replace the drain plug. And wipe up all the coolant that I spilled. So, I'm going to see if I can test this thing with some hot and cold water and just measure the resistance that's running through it and see how it's reacting. I don't think there's anything in the manual about troubleshooting this part, but that might give me an idea if it's running sluggishly or inaccurately. What is up, guys? I am Howie, and this is the cooking channel. Kidding. We're making temperature sensor soup, and we're going to check the resistance of the temperature sensor at some specific temperatures to try to see if this thing is malfunctioning at all. Ordinarily, you would use the Ducati diagnostic system to do this. It's a very expensive tool, and I, and probably most everybody else in the world, unless you're a Ducati mechanic, in which case you aren't watching this video, probably don't have it. So it should be fairly straightforward. I'm going to measure the resistance of the sensor at specific temperatures, and I'm going to do that using room temperature and boiling water, or hot water. So the first room temperature water is about 24 degrees Celsius. I'm getting about 2.77 kiloohms, 2.78 kiloohms. So that's essentially in range with what we're looking for. So pretty close to 80 degrees Celsius. The trick is going to be to do this without burning myself. The resistance is falling, which is what it's supposed to do. Should stabilize right at about 0.4 kiloohms. So for this sensor, we should probably be, it's going to be hard to say because it's difficult to say what exactly it's registering, but it's probably pretty close. So I'm suspicious that this may not necessarily be the issue. All right, guys, sorry for the weird cut, but first of all, if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you, I appreciate it. Secondly, there's a couple of things that have transpired since the last clip that I shot in that video, going through some of the troubleshooting. I wasn't super confident in the troubleshooting that I was doing, both because I wasn't sure that I had data on the right part, and I just didn't have the right diagnostic system. So I went ahead and went to the dealer and found that the parts that I had removed were fairly inexpensive. So the sensor was less than $50. The thermostat was less than $30. Thermostats typically only last 7 to 13 years. The bike is 13 years old, so I'm assuming it's probably due for a thermostat. I have no idea when it was done. So I just went ahead and ordered those parts. Third thing is back in the day, Ducati used to do a thing where they would shut their warehouse down for a period of time in August, and they've stopped doing it when they hired an outside logistics company, but now apparently it's back on again. And they didn't tell the dealers until 3 days after they had actually shut down. So I ordered the parts, and then the dealer found out that they shut down the Thursday following the Saturday that I did order the parts. Long story short, the parts are in, but I ended up working a whole weekend, and so I don't have them. Fourth thing is back in the day there used to be not a freeware, but a hacked-ish way to get into your ECU on a Ducati on 1.0 called Ducati Diag, and it was available through a forum, and you had to get a Fiat cable and an OBD2 adapter. I think I may have bought something like that on eBay. I'm not really sure yet, to be quite frank. because I haven't been home to open the package and see exactly what I spent $40 on. So all of that said, I'm not a huge proponent for just throwing parts at a problem, but given the situation and the level of difficulty involved in getting to the parts and then reinstalling them, and then if something wasn't to work, I just went ahead and did it. So hopefully in a subsequent episode real soon, when I actually get home, I can go ahead and throw those in and see if that's made any difference, and then I can also hook diagnostics in, hopefully, to the bike and see exactly what's going on. So with that, guys, I really appreciate you sticking around. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. If you think this is remotely interesting, please smash the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Get out there, go ride. If I see you out there, I will wave. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Goodbye.
Yeah.